On an elegant street, a woman in orange uniform was doing her job with dignity. Behind an iron gate, someone was watching her in silence, carrying a proposal capable of changing destinies. From the clash of two such different worlds, a story was born that challenged conventions and prejudices. But when the past and power enter the scene, even the best intentions can be put to the test. Before hearing this surprising tale of overcoming and courage, don't forget to subscribe to the EE channel for more inspiring stories. That day, like so many others, she left before sunrise, put on her worn boots, tied her brown hair under her cap, and headed out for another shift on the collection route. Emily Parker, at 28, knew every corner of the wealthiest neighborhood in the city. For 3 years, she had traveled those quiet streets where high walls hid imposing mansions and perfectly manicured gardens. Hope Hill's neighborhood contrasted brutally with the outskirts where she lived. Here, imported cars slept in climate-controlled garages, while there, in the St. George housing complex, families were crammed into two-room apartments. But Emily didn't let herself be intimidated by the differences. She did her work with dignity, treating each garbage bag as part of a greater mission, keeping the city clean and organized. That Tuesday morning, something was different. While collecting waste from Maple Street, the most luxurious in the neighborhood, Emily felt a fixed gaze on her back. She turned discreetly and saw a man standing at the gate of a white mansion, watching her with unusual attention. He had an impeccable appearance, a well-cut suit even at that early hour, black hair precisely combed, the erect posture of someone accustomed to commanding. Emily calculated he must be about 35, perhaps a little less. What intrigued her most wasn't his evident good looks, but the intensity of his gaze. It wasn't the type of observation she usually received, neither idle curiosity nor veiled contempt. It was something different, almost analytical. Emily knew the residents of that neighborhood well. Some greeted her politely, others barely. Noticed her presence, but she had never seen this man before, and the way he observed her made her uncomfortable. She quickened her work pace, loaded the last bags onto the truck, and moved on to the next street. For the rest of the morning, she couldn't get that encounter out of her head. There was something in his gaze that was outside the norm. It wasn't superficial admiration for her appearance, although Emily knew she attracted attention with her green eyes and delicate features. It was as if he were seeing beyond the surface, seeing something others didn't see. Ryan Hamilton watched the garbage truck disappear around the corner and remained at the gate of the house he had temporarily rented for several minutes. In the last 6 months, since returning from abroad, he had been searching for something he couldn't exactly define. Perhaps it was purpose. Perhaps it was a way to deal with the weight of carrying the surname of one of the country's most influential families. Heir to Hamilton Enterprises, an empire that spanned from civil construction to technology, Ryan had always known his life would be different from most people's. He studied at the best universities in the world, had access to opportunities others could only dream of, but also carried the burden of family expectations and the social responsibility that came with the billion-dollar heritage. His degree, in environmental engineering from MIT, hadn't been a random choice. Since he was young, Ryan had questioned the impact of his family's companies on the environment and the communities where they operated. He had returned to the United States with a clear mission: to modernize the family businesses, making them more sustainable and socially responsible. It was during a lecture on urban solid waste management at the State University that Ryan saw her for the first time. Emily was in the audience, in uniform, clearly coming straight from work. While the speaker talked about theories and concepts, she took precise notes, formulated technical questions that impressed even the professors present. Ryan was intrigued. This woman wasn't there out of academic obligation or casual curiosity. She demonstrated deep practical knowledge about the subject, spoke with authority about real challenges of urban collection, suggested solutions that theorists hadn't even considered. It was evident that her experience came from daily practice, not from books. After the lecture, Ryan tried to approach her, but Emily had already left. He only managed to discover that she was part of the training program of the Municipal Urban Cleaning Company and that she was studying environmental management. At a private college in the evening, During the following days, Ryan found himself thinking about that encounter. There was something about Emily's posture, the seriousness with which she treated her own work, that touched him deeply. He decided to find out more about her. That's how he arrived at Maple Street that Tuesday morning. He had temporarily rented the house with the excuse of needing a quiet place to work on a personal project. In reality, he wanted to observe Emily in her work environment, to better understand who this woman was who had impressed a room full of academics. What he saw confirmed his suspicions. Emily worked with method and efficiency, but also with something he rarely found in the corporate world: genuine concern for the end result. She wasn't just fulfilling an obligation, she was contributing to something greater. The next morning, Ryan was again at the gate when Emily arrived. With the truck, this time he took courage and approached. "Good morning," he said with a respectful smile. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Emily immediately went on alert. She knew this type of approach well. Rich men from the neighborhood had tried to talk to her before, always with ulterior motives. She crossed her arms and kept a safe distance. "If you want to complain about the collection, you need to call the company's central office," she responded dryly. "It's not a complaint," Ryan raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Actually, it's the opposite. I saw you at the lecture on solid waste at the university last week. Your questions were impressive." Emily frowned, surprised. She didn't expect someone from that neighborhood to have been at the lecture, much less to remember her participation. "And what do you want with that?" she asked, still suspicious. "I have a job proposal, an environmental impact project that needs someone with your practical experience." "Environmental impact project?" Emily couldn't hide her skepticism. "You don't even know what my training is. I know you're studying environmental management, that you have 3 years of experience in urban collection, and that you understand more about waste management than most consultants I know." Ryan took a card from his pocket and extended. "My name is Ryan Hamilton. If you're interested, I'd like to talk in more detail." Emily took the card and read it quickly. Just a name and a phone number, nothing indicating a company or position. "Hamilton?" she repeated, trying to remember where she had heard that surname. "Yes, I know it seems strange. A stranger approaching you on the street with a job proposal. But it's serious. I have a project that can make a real difference in urban environmental management, and I need someone who understands the practical reality, not just the theory." Emily put the card in her pocket, still uncertain. "I'll think about it," she said, returning to work. "Great, I hope for your call." That night, in the small apartment she shared with her younger sister in the St. George housing complex, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the morning conversation. Diana, a nursing student, noticed her distraction during dinner. "Did something happen at work today?" she asked, serving the simple pasta they had prepared. "A strange guy approached me, said he has a job proposal." "What kind of proposal?" Diana immediately became alert. At 24, she was protective of her older sister. "Environmental project, according to him. But I don't know, it seemed kind of surreal. A well-dressed man in the wealthy neighborhood offering work to a garbage collector. Be careful, Em. You've seen many stories like that end badly." Emily agreed, but something bothered her. There was sincerity in Ryan's voice, a seriousness that didn't seem fake. And he really had been at the lecture. A few details he mentioned confirmed that. After Diana went to sleep, Emily decided to research the name on her phone. What she discovered left her even more confused. Ryan Hamilton wasn't just an ordinary technician or businessman. He was heir to one of the country's largest fortunes. Hamilton Enterprises had tentacles in practically every sector of the economy. He himself had studied abroad, had published articles on corporate sustainability, and had a history of working in vulnerable communities. The information didn't match the image she had of millionaire heirs. Ryan seemed genuinely interested in social and environmental issues, not just in maintaining the family empire. Emily spent the night thinking, was this a real opportunity or just another game of the rich? She decided she would only find out if she gave dialogue a chance. The next morning, Emily called the number on the card. The voice that answered was the same from the previous encounter, deep, polite, unhurried. Ryan Hamilton. "It's Emily, the garbage collector from Maple Street," she said directly. "Emily, I'm glad you called. Do you have time to talk today? I can pick you up somewhere after your shift. You don't need to pick me up. If you're serious, we can meet at Downtown Mall in the food court, 6 o'clock in the evening." Ryan agreed without hesitation. Emily hung up the phone with her heart racing. She had purposely chosen a public and busy place where she would feel safe, but also where the social difference between them would be more evident. If Ryan had ulterior motives or was just a bored rich guy playing philanthropist, that environment would make him give up quickly. The workday seemed longer than normal. Emily caught herself several times thinking about the conversation she would have with Ryan, imagining scenarios and preparing questions. Diana had insisted on accompanying her, but she refused. She needed to evaluate on her own if this opportunity was real. At 6 o'clock sharp, Emily arrived at the mall. She had changed from her work uniform into jeans and a simple but clean and well-ironed blouse. She took pride in always looking presentable, regardless of her financial limitations. Ryan was already waiting at a table in the food court with a notebook open in front of him. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a polo shirt, but it was still impossible not to notice the quality of the pieces. When he saw Emily approaching, he stood up politely. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out the chair for her to sit. "I still don't know exactly why I came," Emily replied, settling in. "But your proposal made me curious." Ryan closed the notebook and focused entirely on her. "I'll be direct. I have a pilot project for integrated urban waste management. The goal is to create a replicable model that combines operational efficiency with positive social impact. I need someone who understands the reality of collection, who knows the practical challenges, and who can help develop viable solutions." "And why me?" "There are specialized consultants, trained environmental engineers. Because consultants work with theories, you work with reality. At last week's lecture, your questions showed that you see problems that theorists don't even imagine exist." Emily studied Ryan's face, looking for signs of falsehood. She found none. "What kind of project exactly?" Ryan opened the notebook again and showed a detailed presentation. The project envisioned the creation of optimized collection routes, implementation of selective collection points in poor communities, environmental education programs, and mainly, the creation of recycling cooperatives that would generate income for low-income residents. "I master the technical part," Ryan explained, "but I need someone who understands how this would work in practice, who knows the real difficulties of the communities, and who can help adapt the solutions so they're really effective." Emily was impressed with the level of detail in the project. It was evident that Ryan had dedicated considerable time and resources to develop it, but one question bothered her. "Why are you doing this? I mean, you're the heir to a billion-dollar company. Why worry about waste management in poor communities?" Ryan was silent for a few seconds, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Because I grew up watching my family build fortunes without worrying about the social impact. I want to do it differently. I want our company to be part of the solution, not the problem." The answer sounded sincere, but Emily realized there was more behind those words. She decided not to insist at the moment. "And what exactly would my role be in this project?" "Practical implementation consultant. You would help me adapt the technical solutions to the reality of the communities, participate in field visits, contribute with your experience in the development of operational protocols." "And the payment?" $5,000 a month, initially. For 6 months. If the project works out, we can think of something more permanent. Emily almost choked on the coffee she was drinking. $5,000 was more than double what she earned as a garbage collector. "This seems too good to be true," she said, suspicious. "It's the market value for this type of consulting." "Actually, it's even conservative," Ryan responded naturally. "You would have to dedicate about 20 hours a week to the project, mainly on weekends and some evenings." "And I could keep my current job?" "Of course. In fact, it would be important that you keep it, at least at the beginning. Your daily experience as a garbage collector is a fundamental part of what I need." Emily was silent, processing the proposal. It was a unique opportunity, but also a risk. What if it was a trap? What if Ryan had other intentions? I need to think, she finally said. Of course, but while you think, how about learning a little more about the project? Tomorrow night there's a presentation on urban sustainability at the university. If you want to go with me, I can show you some examples of similar projects that worked in other countries. Emily hesitated. Going out with Ryan seemed to be crossing a line she wasn't sure she wanted to cross. You don't need to decide now. About the job proposal, he continued, noticing her hesitation. Let's just go as two people interested in the same subject. You can bring your sister if you want. The suggestion of including Diana reassured Emily. It showed that Ryan didn't have romantic intentions, at least not explicit ones. All right, but we'll meet there. Perfect. The lecture is at 7 in the main auditorium. On the way back home, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. Ryan had shown himself to be professional, respectful, and genuinely interested in her opinion. The project seemed solid, and the remuneration was tempting. But something bothered her. Perhaps it was just the natural distrust of someone who had always had to fight for everything in life. At home, she told everything to Diana, who listened with growing attention. This could be the chance of your life," said her sister. $5,000 a month. You could accelerate your college, maybe even stop working as a garbage collector. That's what worries me. It seems too easy. Or maybe you deserve good things happening in your life. Have you thought about that?" Emily smiled. Diana had always been more optimistic than her. "He invited me to a lecture tomorrow night. Do you want to come with me?" "Of course, I want to meet this Prince Charming of solid waste." The following night, the two sisters arrived at the university auditorium a few minutes before the start of the lecture. Emily looked for Ryan and found him in the third row, who waved discreetly when he saw her. The lecture was about international experiences in sustainable urban waste management. The speaker, a visiting professor from Germany, presented cases of cities that had completely transformed their collection and recycling systems. Emily was fascinated. Some of the solutions presented were exactly what she had imagined during her years of work on the streets. It was possible to create efficient systems that benefited both the environment and the poor communities. During the break, Ryan approached. "Emily, I'm glad you came. This must be your sister." "Diana," she introduced herself, studying Ryan with barely disguised curiosity. "Nice to meet you, Diana. What did you think of the lecture so far?" "Interesting," replied Emily. "Some of the solutions the professor presented are things I've always thought could work here in the US." "Exactly. That's what caught my attention about your profile. You have the practical vision that's missing to implement these solutions here." Diana observed the interaction between the two with attention. There was something in the way Ryan looked at Emily that went beyond professional interest, although he was discreet about it. After the lecture, the three went for coffee at a coffee shop near the university. The conversation flowed naturally, covering everything from technical issues of the project to personal experiences of each. Ryan revealed that he had spent 2 years working on social projects in Africa before taking on responsibilities in the family business. Emily talked about her plans to finish college and maybe do a graduate degree. Diana contributed with intelligent observations about sustainability in the health area. When they said goodbye, Emily had already made her decision. "Ryan, I accept your proposal. When do we start?" He smiled, and for the first time since they had met, he seemed genuinely relieved. "Next Monday, I'll email all the project details and the initial schedule." On the way back home, Diana made the comment that Emily was already expecting. "He likes you." "Don't be silly, it's just work." I saw how he looks at you, and you like him too, even if you don't admit it." Emily didn't respond, but she knew her sister was right. There was something about Ryan that attracted her, beyond the professional opportunity. He treated her as an equal, respected her opinions, valued her experience. He was different from all the men she had known. But she also knew that there was a social abyss between them. Ryan was the heir to billions, she a garbage collector from the outskirts. As polite and respectful as he was, that difference would always be there. Even so, for the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to dream of possibilities that went beyond simple survival. Monday arrived with a fine rain that made the streets of the wealthy neighborhood even quieter than usual. Emily finished her collection route earlier than normal and headed to the address Ryan had sent by email, AE. Modern office in the city's business center. The contrast was shocking. Coming directly from the garbage truck, still in her garbage collector uniform, Emily found herself in front of a 20-story mirrored building. The doorman looked at her strangely when she said she had a meeting on the 15th floor. With which company, ma'am? Hamilton Consulting, she replied, showing the email on her phone. The man checked the visitor list and, visibly surprised, released her entry. In the elevator, Emily observed herself in the mirror. The uniform was clean, but it was impossible to disguise where she came from. She took a deep breath and remembered Diana's words the night before. You deserve to be there. Hamilton Consulting occupied the entire floor. Through the glass walls, Emily could see several meeting rooms, modern workstations, and a panoramic view of the city. An elegant receptionist welcomed her with professionalism, although her eyes betrayed curiosity. Ms. Parker, Mr. Hamilton is waiting in meeting room 3. Ryan welcomed her with a warm smile, as if it were perfectly normal for a uniformed garbage collector to be there. There were 2 other people in the room, a middle-aged woman with grey hair and a serious expression, and a young man, probably in his 30s, with an executive air. Emily, I want to introduce my team. This is Dr. Helen Carter, our public policy specialist, and this is Mark Sullivan, project engineer. The greetings were polite, but Emily noticed the evaluative look of the two. It was evident that they didn't expect the new consultant to arrive, uniformed and coming directly from work. Sorry about the clothes, said Emily, deciding to face the situation head-on. I came straight from collection. I didn't have time to go home and change. No need to apologize, Ryan immediately replied. Actually, it's perfect. You're coming from the reality we want to transform. Helen smiled, seeming to approve of the naturalness with which Ryan treated the situation. Well, let's begin, she said. Ryan told us about your experience and your observations on urban waste management. We would like to hear your impressions about the critical points of the current system. For the next 2 hours, Emily felt increasingly confident. Her practical observations complemented perfectly with the team's technical knowledge. She explained problems they hadn't even imagined, how residents' improper disposal of waste made collection difficult, how the lack of environmental education created waste, how route logistics could be optimized. Mark, initially skeptical, began to make frantic notes of Emily's suggestions. Helen was nodding in constant approval. Ryan just observed with a satisfied smile. Emily, said Helen at the end of the meeting, your contributions are exactly what we needed. You have an impressive systemic vision. That's what happens when you live the problem every day, replied Emily. Theory is important, but practice shows where things really fail. When the meeting ended, Ryan offered Emily a ride. She hesitated but ended up accepting. In the car, a discreet hybrid sedan, quite different from the luxury cars she imagined, he would drive. The two talked about the next steps of the project. Next week we're going to do field visits in 3 different communities, Ryan explained. I wanted you to help me understand the dynamics of each, the specific challenges, the local leaderships. I can help with that. I know the reality of these communities well. I live in one of them. Ryan stopped at the traffic light and looked at her. Emily, can I ask a personal question? You can try. Why did you decide to study environmental management? I mean, working as a garbage collector, studying at night. It must be very hard. Emily was silent for a few seconds, organizing her thoughts. My father was a construction worker. He worked his whole life building beautiful buildings, luxury houses, but died in a small, poorly ventilated room. This contradiction always bothered me. The people who build the beauty of the city rarely have access to it. That's an interesting perspective. With garbage, it's the same thing. I clean the most beautiful neighborhoods in the city, but I live in a place where the government barely manages to ensure regular collection. I want to understand how to change this, how to make environmental solutions reach those who need them most. Ryan dropped her off in front of the housing complex where she lived. When she got out of the car, Emily noticed the curious looks of the neighbors. A car like that attracted attention in the neighborhood. "Thanks for the ride," she said, closing the door. "Emily," Ryan lowered the window, "you were brilliant in the meeting today. Thank you for accepting the project." Going up the stairs to the apartment, Emily felt strange. In a few hours, she had transitioned between two completely different worlds, the garbage truck and the executive meeting room, and surprisingly, she had done well in both. Diana was waiting anxiously for details. "So, how was the first day in the corporate world?" "Better than I expected," admitted Emily. "The team seems competent and they treated me with respect. But it's strange, Di. It's like I'm living two parallel lives. Maybe it's time to choose one of them." "Not yet. I need to be sure this is going to work out before I leave my steady job." In the following weeks, Emily's routine became even more intense. She worked as a garbage collector in the morning, attended college some nights, and dedicated weekends to the project with Ryan. The consulting was proving to be fascinating. It was exactly the kind of work she had always dreamed of doing. The field visits were particularly revealing. Ryan observed everything with attention, asked pertinent questions, and mainly listened to the answers of the community residents. Emily realized that he genuinely cared about the social impact of the project. During a visit to Newtown Housing Complex, one of the poorest communities in the city, something happened that would change the dynamics between them. They were talking to Mrs. Rose, a 60-year-old community leader who knew all the problems in the region, when a group of teenagers approached. One of them, no more than 16 years old, recognized Emily. "Hey, aren't you the garbage collector from the rich neighborhood?" he asked with a provocative tone. "Yes, I am," replied Emily calmly. "And now you're riding around with a rich boy?" continued the boy, looking at Ryan with suspicion. The tension in the air was palpable. Ryan prepared to intervene, but Emily stopped him with a gesture. "This is Ryan, my work partner. We're developing a project to improve garbage collection and create job opportunities here in the community." "Oh, really? And what does he know about our reality?" asked another teenager. "He knows how to listen," replied Emily, "and he's willing to learn. How about you tell him what the main environmental problems you see here in the neighborhood are?" What followed was a 2-hour conversation. The youths, initially hostile, opened up as they realized that Ryan genuinely wanted to understand their perspectives. They talked about the lack of selective collection, about the clogging of storm drains when it rained, about the lack of green spaces in the community. Ryan wrote everything down, asked clarifying questions, and, mainly, treated the teenagers' opinions with seriousness. By the end of the conversation, even the most hostile in the group was excited about the possibilities of the project. "Man, if you guys manage to do half of what you're talking about, it'll be a revolution," said the first boy. In the car, returning home, Ryan was visibly moved. "Emily, what happened there was incredible. You transformed a tense situation into an opportunity for dialogue. That's how communities work. Initial distrust, but openness when they perceive sincerity. You have a natural talent for this, for connecting people, for building bridges between different worlds." Emily looked out the window, seeing the urban landscape change as they moved away from the outskirts towards the city center. "Maybe because I live in both worlds. In the morning, I'm in the rich neighborhoods collecting garbage. In the afternoon, I'm in offices discussing environmental policy. At night, I return to the outskirts. It's like I'm a translator between different realities." And that's exactly what we need in this project, someone who understands both ends. When Ryan dropped her off at home that night, Emily realized that something had changed between them. It was no longer just a professional relationship. A mutual respect had grown, a genuine admiration for each other's qualities. But a tension that neither of them was ready to acknowledge had also grown. The attraction that had begun at the first meeting was turning into something deeper, more complicated. Emily went up to the apartment, knowing that her life was changing irreversibly. The question was, where would this change lead her? 2 months passed since the beginning of the partnership, and the project was exceeding all expectations. Preliminary results showed a 30% reduction in the volume of uncollected waste in the pilot areas, as well as a significant increase in the population's adherence to selective collection programs. Emily found herself in a surreal situation in the morning. She still wore the garbage collector uniform and traveled the streets with the garbage truck. On Thursday afternoons and weekends, she participated in executive meetings and visited municipal authorities to present the project results. The transformation didn't go unnoticed by her co-workers. Joe, the collection team supervisor for more than 15 years, called her to talk during the lunch break. "Emily, can I talk to you for a minute?" They moved away from the group and sat on a bench under the shade of a tree in the company yard. "Honey, everyone here is talking about this extra work of yours. They say you're hanging out with important people, participating in meetings." Emily sighed. She knew this conversation would eventually come. "It's true, Joe. I'm working as a consultant on an environmental management project." "And is this serious? It's not some opportunist trying to take advantage of you?" The genuine concern in the man's voice touched Emily. Joe was like a father to the whole team. "It's serious. The project is getting results, I'm learning a lot, and the pay is good." "Then why are you still here? Don't get me wrong, I like having you on the team, but if you have a better opportunity..." "Because I'm still not sure if it's permanent, and because I like the work here. You all are my family." Joe smiled and gave an affectionate pat on her shoulder. "Just be careful not to forget where you came from when you get famous, okay?" "Never, Joe. Never." That same afternoon, Emily had a meeting with Ryan to review the week's data. This time the meeting would be at his apartment, a penthouse with a panoramic view of the city, which he used as a private office. Emily arrived still impressed with the discreet luxury of the place. Ryan received her casually, served coffee, and spread the reports on the coffee table in the living room. "This week's numbers are even better," he said, showing the graphs. "The recycling cooperative in Newtown is already generating income for 20 families. It's amazing how people embraced the project when they realized it wasn't just theory," replied Emily, analyzing the data. "Mrs. Rose told me yesterday that she's never seen the community so engaged in an environmental initiative." "Emily, I need to tell you something." Ryan put down the reports and looked at her directly. "Next week, we're going to present the project to the Hamilton Enterprises Board. If they approve, the project will be expanded to the entire city." "That's fantastic." Emily couldn't hide her excitement. "Yes, but there's a condition. They want to meet you personally. They want to understand how a garbage collector managed to develop solutions that expensive consultancies couldn't." Emily's excitement turned to anxiety. "They're going to question me about my training, my experience. And you're going to shine as you always do." Ryan moved closer to her on the sofa. "Emily, you've revolutionized the way we think about urban waste management. You deserve all the recognition." It was the first time they had been so physically close. Emily could smell Ryan's discreet cologne, see the details of his brown eyes. For a moment, it seemed like he would lean in to kiss her. But his phone rang, breaking the moment. "Sorry," said Ryan, answering. "Hello, Helen. Yes, she's here. What do you mean, problematic?" The tone of the conversation changed drastically. Ryan stood up and walked to the window, speaking in a low voice. Emily could only hear fragments. "Can't be true. How did they find out? We need to prepare." When he hung up, Ryan was visibly disturbed. "What happened?" asked Emily. "Helen heard from a friend in the press. Someone leaked information about our project. Tomorrow, an article will come out questioning the hiring of a garbage collector as a consultant for $1 million project." Emily felt her stomach sink. "What kind of questioning?" "The worst kind possible. They're insinuating that your hiring wasn't based on professional merit." "And what was it based on according to them?" Ryan hesitated before answering. "On our personal proximity." The silence that followed was embarrassing. Emily stood up abruptly. "I understand. So now my competence is being questioned because I'm a woman and you're a man." "Emily, you know that's not it." "Do I?" She turned to face him. "Ryan, from the first day I've been wondering why you chose me. A garbage collector without a complete education, without consulting experience, without connections. Because you're brilliant, because you understand things that nobody else understands, or because you were attracted to me and thought it would be interesting to have a personal project of social transformation. That's unfair and you know it, Ryan approached her. Everything you've achieved was on your own merit. Was it really? Emily picked up her bag and walked towards the door. Because now I'm starting to doubt it. Emily, don't do this. Don't let them destroy something that we built together. She stopped with her hand on the doorknob. We, Ryan? What we? You're the heir to billions. I'm a garbage collector from the outskirts. There is no we. Yes, there is, and you know it. Emily faced him for a few seconds with teary eyes. The problem is that I really wish there was, and that scares me more than any newspaper article. She left the apartment, leaving Ryan alone with his own reflections. On the bus back home, Emily tried to organize her feelings. She knew she had developed something much deeper than professional admiration for Ryan. In the last 2 months, she had caught herself anxiously waiting for their work meetings, paying attention to details like his smile when she made an insightful observation, or the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. But she also knew that there was a social abyss between them that might be impossible to bridge. Ryan could be polite, respectful, and genuinely interested in social causes, but he was the product of a world of privileges that she would never know. And now the press was questioning not only her professional competence, but also suggesting that there was something improper in her relationship with Ryan. It was exactly the kind of situation she had always feared, being reduced to stereotypes, having her achievements minimized. At home, Diana immediately noticed that something was wrong. Em, what happened? You look terrible. Emily told her everything. The meeting, the moment of closeness with Ryan, the phone call, the argument. You like him, Diana affirmed after hearing everything. That doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Em, you're letting fear ruin a unique opportunity. What opportunity? To be publicly humiliated? To have my competence questioned because I fell in love with the boss? To be happy? Diana said simply. When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel something for someone? Emily was silent. The truth was that she had never allowed herself to develop deep feelings for any man. She had always been afraid that it would divert her from her goals, or worse, that she would be used and abandoned. What if he doesn't feel the same? What if it's just curiosity on his part? What if it's love on his part too? Em, are you going to spend your whole life asking, what if, because of fear? That night, Emily could barely sleep. In the morning, she arrived early at work, hoping that the familiar routine would help clear her thoughts. But as soon as she arrived at the locker room, she realized something was different. The conversation stopped when she entered. Colleagues looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and embarrassment. Joe approached her, holding a newspaper. Emily, did you see this? The article occupied half a page of the business section. The title was provocative, The Golden Garbage Collector, How an Urban Cleaning Employee Became a Consultant for $1 Million Project. The text, although not making direct accusations, was full of insinuations about the speed with which she had professionally ascended and about her proximity to the heir of Hamilton Enterprises. Honey, is this true? Asked Joe, concerned. The part about my work as a consultant is true. The rest are malicious insinuations. And this guy, this Ryan Hamilton. Emily hesitated before answering. He's my work partner and a friend. Joe studied her face for a few seconds. Emily, are you sure you know what you're doing? These high society people sometimes play with others' feelings without realizing the damage they cause. I know how to take care of myself, Joe. I know you do, but be careful not to get hurt. Throughout the workday, Emily felt the looks and heard the whispers of her colleagues. Some showed support, others curiosity. A few showed barely disguised envy. At 6 p.m, when she arrived home, she found Ryan waiting at the door of the building. Ryan was leaning against his car, still wearing a suit, but with his tie loosened and an expression of fatigue that Emily had never seen before. When he saw her approaching, he straightened up, but remained where he was, as if he wasn't sure if he would be welcome. Ryan, what are you doing here? We need to talk about the article, about the project, and about us. Emily looked around. Some neighbors had already noticed the presence of the luxury car and the well-dressed man. The curtains moved discreetly in the nearby windows. "Not here," she said. "Let's go up." In the apartment, Diana greeted Ryan politely, but soon made an excuse to leave, leaving the two alone. "I saw the article," said Emily, going straight to the point. "Everyone at work saw it too." "Emily, you need to know that I had nothing to do with this leak. I'm trying to find out who it was, but—" "It doesn't matter who it was," she interrupted him. "The damage is done. Now, everyone is going to question my competence. They'll think that everything I achieved was because I got involved with you." "And did we get involved?" asked Ryan directly. The question caught Emily off guard. She was silent for a few seconds, organizing her thoughts. I don't know what we are," she finally admitted. "I know I started by admiring your work, your dedication to the project, but in the last few months that transformed into something more." "For me too," said Ryan, approaching her. "Emily, from the first day I saw you at the lecture, you affected me in a way that I couldn't explain. It wasn't just your intelligence or your unique perspective. It was you entirely." "But what now? With all this exposure, with people questioning our professional relationship, now we have to decide what's more important, what others think or what we feel." Emily walked to the small window of the living room, from where one could see the housing complex extending to the horizon. "Ryan, you don't understand. For you, this article is a passing annoyance. For me, it could be the end of any professional credibility I've built." "Then let's prove they're wrong." "How?" "By presenting the project to the board next week, showing that the results speak for themselves, making it clear that you were hired on merit, not for any other reason. And if they already have their opinion formed because of the article—" Ryan approached her and gently held her hands. "Then we fight, together." His touch made Emily shiver. For a moment she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like if there wasn't all that complication, if they were just two people who met and fell in love. "Ryan, even if we overcome this crisis, there will always be others. There will always be people questioning why a billionaire heir is with a garbage collector from the outskirts. And there will always be people questioning anything that deviates from the norm. Emily, I can't change where I come from, just as you can't change where you come from, but I can choose who I want to build the future with." Before Emily could respond, her cell phone rang. It was Helen from the project team. "Emily, thank God you answered. I need to warn you, the situation got worse." "Worse how?" "A new article came out, this time more aggressive, and worse. Financial details of the project leaked. Someone inside the company is deliberately sabotaging." Emily felt her legs weaken. Ryan, who was listening to the conversation, took her phone. "Helen, this is Ryan. What kind of details leaked?" "Your compensation as a consultant, the project expenses, insinuations about favoritism in hiring. Ryan, this is turning into a corporate scandal." "Where are you now?" "At the office, doing damage control. But I need to tell you, your father called. He wants an emergency meeting tomorrow morning." Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. "I understand. We're coming over now." "Ryan, no," said Emily as soon as he hung up. "I'm not going to the office. Not today. Not like this." "Emily, we need to face this together." "No, you need to face this. It's your company, your family, your future. I'm just a temporary consultant who became a problem." "You're not a problem. You're the best thing that happened to this project and to me." Emily looked at him with teary eyes. "Ryan, you're a good man, but we both know this can't work out. We're from worlds that are too different." "Emily, don't do this." "I'm resigning from the project," she said, with a firm voice despite the tears, "and I'm asking you not to contact me anymore." "You can't do that. The project needs you. The project will continue without me. You have all the necessary information, all the protocols we developed. Any competent consultant can continue." "I need you," said Ryan softly. Emily closed, her eyes for a moment trying to be strong. "And I need to preserve what little professional dignity I have left." Ryan was silent for a few minutes, clearly fighting against his own emotions. If that's what you want, it's what needs to happen. Then I'll respect your decision, but I want you to know that you changed my life and that I'll miss you every day. After Ryan left, Emily allowed herself to cry for the first time in months. Diana arrived home an hour later and found her still on the sofa with red eyes. Em, what happened? I ended everything, the project, contact with Ryan, everything. Why? Because it's better this way. Before this turns into a bigger circus and destroys both careers. Diana sat next to her sister. Are you sure that's what you want? I'm sure that's what needs to happen. In the following days, the situation only got worse. New articles appeared, each one more sensationalist than the previous. The project was temporarily suspended by Hamilton Enterprises for internal investigation. Emily was sought out by several journalists but refused all interviews. At work, the situation was embarrassing. Some colleagues supported her, others made malicious comments. Joe tried to protect her from the worst comments, but it was impossible to completely ignore the situation. A week after her conversation with Ryan, Emily received an unexpected call from Helen. Emily, I know you've distanced yourself from the project, but I need to tell you what we discovered. Helen, I prefer not to. Please just listen to me. We discovered who leaked the information to the press. It was Mark, the team's engineer. Emily was surprised. Mark had always been professional and cordial with her. Why? Envy, according to what he himself confessed. He said it wasn't fair for a garbage collector without a complete education to receive the same recognition as him, with a master's degree and 10 years of experience. And what will happen to him? He was immediately fired. And Emily, there's more. The final results of the project arrived. Even with all this turbulence, the numbers are exceptional. 40% reduction in uncollected waste, creation of 200 direct jobs in the cooperatives, $2 million savings for the municipality. Emily was moved by the news but tried to keep her voice firm. I'm glad it worked out. Emily, the company board wants to meet you. Not to question your competence, but to offer a permanent position as Director of Social Sustainability, with a salary of $15,000 a month. The information left Emily speechless. Helen, I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Emily, you revolutionized our way of seeing social projects. The company needs people like you. And Ryan, does he know about this offer? It was his idea, but he said the decision has to be completely yours, without any pressure on his part. After hanging up the phone, Emily stood in the middle of the living room, trying to process everything. In a week, she had gone from the height of professional achievement to rock bottom, and now she was receiving a proposal that would change her life forever. But the question that bothered her the most wasn't about career or money. It was about Ryan. Had she made a mistake by distancing herself from him? Could love overcome the social differences that haunted her so much? Emily spent 3 days thinking about Helen's proposal. $15,000 a month as social sustainability director of Hamilton Enterprises was more money than she had ever dreamed of earning. But accepting would mean returning to Ryan's world, facing again all the complications she had tried to avoid. On Thursday night, after a particularly difficult day at work, where some colleagues still whispered about the scandal, Emily made a decision. She called Helen and scheduled the meeting with the board for Monday. Emily, you made the right choice, said Helen, visibly relieved. The board is eager to meet you personally. Helen, can I ask a question? Will Ryan be at the meeting? No. He asked to be absent, said his presence could unduly influence the board's decision about your hiring. Over the weekend, Emily prepared intensively. She reviewed all the project data, prepared a detailed presentation about the results obtained, and rehearsed possible questions with Diana. Em, you're ready for this, said her sister on Sunday night. Go there and show them what you're capable of. What if they ask about my relationship with Ryan? You answer the truth, that it was strictly professional and that the results speak for themselves. Monday arrived with a clear and sunny sky. Emily chose her best outfit, a simple suit she had bought with the first payment from the consulting, and arrived at the Hamilton Enterprises building 15 minutes before the scheduled time. The presidency floor was even more imposing than the consulting office. Emily was received by an elegant secretary who led her to a meeting room with a mahogany oval table and a panoramic view of the city. 5 people were already present. Helen, 2 middle-aged men who looked like senior executives, a sophisticated-looking, blonde woman, and at the head of the table, an imposing man with grey hair who could only be the patriarch of the Hamilton family. "Ms. Emily Parker," said the man, standing up to greet her. "I'm Edward Hamilton, chairman of the board. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person." The greetings were formal, but respectful. Emily noticed that everyone discreetly analyzed her, probably trying to reconcile the image they had formed, through the reports with the real person in front of them. "Well, let's begin," said Edward, returning to his place. "Ms. Emily, before we talk about your possible hiring, we would like to hear directly from you an evaluation of the pilot project." For the next 40 minutes, Emily presented data, analyses, and projections with a confidence that surprised even herself. She talked about the initial challenges, the necessary adaptations, the success factors, and the lessons learned. "Impressive," commented one of the executives. "Your numbers are better than those of international consultancies that cost 10 times more." "The difference is that I knew the practical reality," replied Emily. "Often the best solutions are found in the people who live the problem daily, not in air-conditioned offices." Edward smiled for the first time in the meeting. A refreshing perspective, but I have to address a delicate subject. His expression became more serious. "There have been speculations in the press about the nature of your relationship with my son. How do you respond to that?" Emily took a deep breath. It was the question she feared most, but also the one she was most prepared to answer. "Mr. Hamilton, my relationship with Ryan was strictly professional. He hired me based on my performance at an academic lecture and on the results I could deliver. The project numbers prove that this assessment was correct, and there was never at any time personal involvement." Emily hesitated for a fraction of a second. Lying would be easier, but something inside her refused to completely deny the feelings she had developed. "I developed great admiration and respect for Ryan's work, as I believe he developed for me. But this never interfered with our professional performance, nor influenced the technical decisions of the project." Edward studied her face for a few seconds in silence. "Very well. Now, about the position we're offering." What followed was a detailed conversation about responsibilities, expectations, and working conditions. The position involved leading a new division of the company focused on sustainability projects with social impact, with a budget of $5 million annually and autonomy to build her own team. "It's a considerable responsibility," said Edward. "Do you feel prepared for this?" "I feel prepared to learn and grow in the role," Emily answered honestly. "I have a lot to contribute, but also a lot to learn." "Perfect. Hired." The naturalness with which Edward announced the decision caught Emily by surprise. "Just like that? No vote, no discussion?" "My dear," said Edward, smiling, "when you're my 67 years old and have built a business empire, you learn to recognize talent when you see it. You have something that isn't taught in college, the ability to make things happen." After settling the contractual details and the startup procedures, Emily left the meeting in a state of shock. In 2 hours, she had completely changed the course of her professional life. Helen accompanied her to the elevator. "Emily, can I give you some advice? Edward Hamilton is known for not giving second chances. He believed in you today. Don't disappoint him." "I won't disappoint him. And another thing," Helen lowered her voice, "Ryan doesn't know the result of the meeting yet. Edward wanted you to decide yourself whether you'll seek him out or not." On the way back home, Emily felt divided between the euphoria of professional achievement and the anxiety about how to deal with the personal situation. Accepting the position meant that she would inevitably meet Ryan regularly. Would she be able to keep the relationship strictly professional? Arriving at the housing complex, she was surprised by a small group of neighbors at the door of the building. "Emily," called Mrs. Connie, the building manager, "is it true that you're going to be a director of an important company?" How did you know? It came out in the online newspaper just now, said another neighbor, showing his cell phone. Former garbage collector becomes director of multinational. The article was surprisingly positive, focusing on the trajectory of overcoming and the exceptional results of the project. There were no malicious insinuations or questions about competence. "What pride, my child," said Mrs. Connie, hugging Emily. "A girl from here in the complex going so far." At home, Diana had already seen the news and prepared a special dinner to celebrate. "I knew you could do it. $15,000 a month. We can even think about buying our own apartment." "Calm down, Di. First, I need to prove that I deserve this salary." "You've already proven it. Now you just need to continue being who you've always been." That night, Emily was on the balcony of the apartment, observing the city lights in the distance, when her cell phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello? Emily? This is Edward Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton, did something happen?" No, actually, I called to tell you something you should know before you start working with us." "What would that be?" "It's about my son Ryan. Do you know why he became so interested in social sustainability projects?" He mentioned something about wanting to do differently from the previous generation. "It's more specific than that." Edward paused for a moment. "When Ryan was 15, he lost his mother. She died from respiratory complications caused by pollution from one of our old factories. A factory that I built without proper environmental care." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. "Mr. Hamilton, I didn't know. Ryan never fully forgave me for that, and I don't forgive myself either. That's why I fully supported him when he decided to focus on sustainability. It's his way of honoring his mother's memory." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you should understand that the work you did together isn't just a project for him. It's a personal mission. And because you should know that he's been suffering since you two grew apart." "Mr. Hamilton," Emily, "I'm not asking you to make any decision about your personal life. But as a father, I see my son unhappy. And as a businessman, I saw today a brilliant woman who is clearly also dealing with unresolved feelings." After hanging up the phone, Emily stood on the balcony for more than an hour, rethinking everything that had happened in the last few months. The revelation about Ryan's mother put his dedication to the project in a new perspective. It wasn't just altruism or social responsibility, it was personal redemption. And she had distanced herself from him precisely when he needed support the most. For the first time since she had made the decision to distance herself, Emily began to question whether she had made the right choice. Emily's first day as social sustainability director of Hamilton Enterprises arrived with a mixture of nervousness and determination. She had spent the previous week studying the company's structure, getting to know the ongoing projects, and preparing her strategy for the first few months. The office assigned to her was on the 18th floor, 2 rooms next to the department Ryan supervised. Helen had casually mentioned that he was traveling on business and would only return the following week. Information that brought both relief and an inexplicable pang of disappointment to Emily. During the morning, Emily met with her new team. 3 young and enthusiastic analysts who had been transferred from other departments specifically to work in the new division. The group's energy was contagious, and she felt renewed as she explained the vision and objectives they had ahead. "Our goal isn't just to create projects that look good in the annual report," she told the team. "We want to generate real impact in the communities, create job and income opportunities, and show that sustainability and social responsibility can be highly profitable." Around noon, while reviewing project proposals in her office, Emily heard a soft knock on the door. "Come in," she said, without raising her eyes from the papers. "Congratulations on the promotion." The familiar voice made Emily immediately raise her head. Ryan was standing at the entrance holding 2 cups of coffee and with a careful expression of cordial professionalism. "Ryan," she stood up, trying to disguise the acceleration of her heart. "I thought you were traveling." "I returned early this morning. I heard you started today and, well, I brought coffee. A tradition of ours." He smiled timidly, extending one of the cups. Emily accepted the coffee, noticing that he had remembered exactly how she liked it, with brown sugar and a pinch of cinnamon. "Thank you, and thank you for recommending my name for the position. You deserved it. The project results speak for themselves." They stood in silence for a few moments, drinking coffee and avoiding direct eye contact. The tension in the air was palpable, not of anger or resentment, but of unresolved feelings. "Emily," Ryan finally broke the silence, "I know our last conversation didn't end well. I want you to know that I completely respect your decision to keep our relationship strictly professional." "Ryan, Let me finish," he gently interrupted. "I want you to feel comfortable working here. If my presence is a problem, I can request a transfer to another floor or even to the San Francisco branch." The suggestion caught Emily by surprise. It was evident how much this situation was costing him too. "That won't be necessary. We're professional adults. We can work together without complications." "Well," he finished his coffee and headed for the door. "If you need anything, any support to adapt, you can count on me." After Ryan left, Emily stood in the middle of the office, trying to process the encounter. There was something different about him, a subtle sadness that she couldn't ignore. And the offer to transfer showed that he was really willing to make any sacrifice to make her feel comfortable. The following weeks established a cordial professional routine between them. They participated in the same meetings when necessary, exchanged information about related projects, maintained respectful and productive interactions. But Emily noticed that both made a conscious effort to avoid moments alone or conversations that could become personal. It was during a monthly presentation to the board, 6 weeks after her hiring, that everything changed. Emily was presenting the results of the 3 new projects that her division had implemented: a recycling cooperative that already employed 150 people, a community composting program that served 5 neighborhoods, and a solar energy initiative in public schools that had reduced operational costs by 40%. "Exceptional numbers, Emily," commented Edward Hamilton. "You've exceeded our most optimistic expectations." "Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, but I want to make it clear that none of this would be possible without the initial work that was developed in partnership with Ryan. The technical and methodological foundation we created together was fundamental to the current success." Ryan, who was present at the meeting, seemed genuinely touched by the public recognition. "Actually," Emily continued, making an impulsive decision, "I would like to propose that we resume this partnership. I have an idea for a large-scale project. That could benefit the entire metropolitan region, but I need the technical expertise of Ryan's department." Edward looked between the two, clearly intrigued. "What kind of project?" "An integrated waste management system that would connect 15 municipalities, create more than 1,000 direct jobs, and could become a national model. But it's too complex for my division alone." "Ryan, what do you think?" asked Edward. "I think it would be an excellent opportunity," replied Ryan, looking directly at Emily for the first time in weeks. "When can we talk about the details? How about this afternoon after work?" At 6 in the evening, they met in Emily's office. At first, the conversation was strictly technical. Emily presented her proposal in detail. Ryan asked pertinent questions and made valuable suggestions. But as the discussion progressed, the old harmony between them naturally re-emerged. "Emily, this is brilliant," said Ryan, studying the schemes she had drawn. "You thought of aspects I hadn't even considered, as always." "I learned from the best teacher," she replied, smiling genuinely for the first time since they had met again. "Not quite. You always had this systemic vision. I just helped organize your ideas." The comment created a moment of comfortable silence between them. Emily realized that she had missed those conversations, the way their ideas complemented each other, the feeling of building something important together with someone who really understood her. "Ryan," she said, putting away the papers, "can I ask a personal question?" "Of course." "Your father told me about your mother, about what happened." Ryan stood still for a few seconds, as if deciding how much to reveal. "He shouldn't have told you." "Maybe not, but it made me better understand why. This work is so important to you." "It's more than important," said Ryan softly. "It's necessary. Each project we implement, each community we help, is a way to honor her memory and try to compensate for past mistakes." "And why did you never tell me this?" Because I didn't want you to think that my interest in you or your work had to do with some guilt complex or need for redemption. Emily approached him, gently touching his arm. Ryan, this doesn't diminish in any way the value of what you do. Actually, it makes everything more meaningful. Emily, he looked directly into her eyes, I missed you very much. Not just professionally. You as a person were missed in my life. You were missed in mine too, she admitted. These 2 months were the loneliest I've ever lived. Then why did we grow apart? Why did we let others' opinions be more important than our feelings? Because I was afraid, said Emily with teary eyes. Afraid of not being enough for your world. Afraid of being judged. Afraid that you would get tired of me when the novelty wore off. And I was afraid that you would see me only as a charity project, said Ryan, as if it were pity or social obligation. It was never that. I know. I always knew. But it's hard to believe that someone like you could be interested in someone like me for who I really am, not for what I represent. Emily looked at him, surprised. Someone like me? Ryan, you're one of the most genuine people I've ever met. You could live a life of privilege without worrying about anything, but you choose to dedicate your time and knowledge to help people you don't even know. And you, said he, getting closer, are the bravest person I know. You came from the outskirts, studied at night while working during the day, never lost your dignity or hope, and still find energy to care about others' well-being. They were now very close. Emily could smell Ryan's familiar cologne, see the details of his brown eyes that she admired so much. Emily, he said softly, can I kiss you? In response, she leaned towards him. The kiss was soft at first, then more intense, charged with all the repressed feelings of the last few months. It was recognition. It was longing. It was the admission that they had wasted precious time trying to fight against something inevitable. When they separated, both were emotional. And now, asked Emily, now we stop running from what we feel. It won't be easy to deal with others' opinions, with the differences of our worlds, but it's worth trying, she completed. It's worth trying. 6 months later, Emily was on the stage of the largest auditorium of the university, receiving the Innovation in Social Sustainability Award for the integrated waste management project she had developed in partnership with Ryan. In the audience, she could see Diana, Joe, Mrs. Rose from Newtown, Helen, Edward Hamilton, and, in the first row, Ryan applauding with pride. This award isn't just mine, she said at the microphone. It belongs to every garbage collector who cleans our streets with dignity, to every waste picker who sees value where others see only garbage, to every person who believes it's possible to build a more just and sustainable world. After the ceremony, during the reception, Ryan approached her. Congratulations, Director, or should I say congratulations, future Doctor of Environmental Management. Emily smiled. She had started her doctorate the previous month with a scholarship, earned on her own merit. Thank you, partner, for everything. Emily, said Ryan, taking her hand, can I ask you a question? Always. Will you marry me? The question caught her completely by surprise. They had been dating for 6 months, facing together the challenges of social difference, building a relationship based on mutual respect and shared projects, but she wasn't expecting a proposal. Ryan, I know it's early. I know we still have many obstacles to overcome, but I also know that I want to build the rest of my life by your side, working together to make the world a better place. Emily looked around the reception. She saw familiar faces, people who had witnessed her trajectory, who had doubted, supported, questioned, and celebrated her achievements. And in the midst of all this was Ryan, the man who had seen potential in her when others saw only a uniformed garbage collector. Yes, she said, smiling through tears. Yes, I accept. The kiss that followed was interrupted by applause from the audience that had witnessed the moment. Among those celebrating, Emily could see Joe discreetly wiping his eyes and Diana enthusiastically clapping. 2 years later, at the simple but elegant wedding held in the company garden, which now housed an environmental education center, open to the community, Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her there. She still remembered the morning she met Ryan, when he was just a stranger watching her work. She would never have imagined that that casual encounter would completely change the course of her life. "What are you thinking about?" asked Ryan, approaching her during the party. "About how funny fate is. If you hadn't rented that house on Maple Street, I would have found a way to meet you anyway," he said, smiling. "People like you are too rare to go unnoticed." "And people like you are too rare to let slip away," she replied, kissing him softly. As they danced to the sound of soft music, Emily looked at the guests, residents of the communities where their projects operated, company colleagues, university, professors, friends from the outskirts and the elite. It was an unlikely mixture, but it worked perfectly, just like her marriage to Ryan. "Mrs. Hamilton," said Ryan, teasing her, "ready for our next adventure?" "Always," she replied. "But first, tell me, what's the next project?" "A national urban sustainability program. 50 cities, 1,000 cooperatives, 10,000 direct jobs." Emily smiled. It was exactly the kind of challenge she loved. "And when do we start?" "On Monday," he laughed. "But for today, how about enjoying our wedding party?" "Good idea, husband." Later that night, when all the guests had already left and they were alone in the garden, Emily thought about how her life had transformed, from garbage collector from the outskirts to director of a multinational, from lonely woman to passionate wife, from survivor to agent of social transformation. But what moved her the most weren't the individual achievements, but the certainty that she had found her true mission, to build bridges between different worlds, to create opportunities for those who needed them most, and to prove that love and working together could overcome any barrier. That day, like so many others, she had left home before sunrise. But this time she was no longer an anonymous garbage collector traveling quiet streets. She was a fulfilled woman, professionally and personally, who had discovered that the most important encounters in life happen when we least expect them. And it had